First contact's price. The message arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning, transmitted directly into every communications device on Earth simultaneously. Dr. Maya Chen sat in her quantum physics lab at CERN, staring at her tablet in disbelief as elegant alien script transformed into perfect English before her eyes. Greetings, Species 7249. The Galactic Assembly acknowledges your achievement of rudimentary faster-than-light travel. As per Assembly Protocol 442b, your civilization is hereby designated for preliminary evaluation. Maya's hands trembled as she read the words. Humanity's first contact wasn't coming through radio signals from distant stars or through mysterious artifacts. It was a bureaucratic notice, as impersonal as a parking ticket. Within hours, massive ships appeared in high Earth orbit, sleek vessels that seemed to bend light around their hulls. The Assembly's evaluation team arrived with all the warmth of tax auditors, their four-armed, crystalline forms moving through the United Earth Council chambers with barely concealed disdain. Your species has achieved FTL travel through remarkably crude means, the lead evaluator, who called himself Nexus, stated during the first official meeting. His crystalline form shimmed with patterns that humanity's linguists would later identify as expressing mild disgust. The energy inefficiency alone violates 3 assembly guidelines. Maya, chosen to represent Earth's scientific community, felt her face flush. The Alcubierre drive she'd helped develop had revolutionized human space travel. To hear it dismissed so casually stung. Our methods may be different, but they work, she responded, keeping her voice steady. We've successfully established colonies on Mars and Europa. Yes, Nexus replied, his tone dripping with condescension. We've observed your expansion. This brings us to the primary concern. Your species appears to lack the proper developmental sequencing. You've achieved space travel before resolving your internal conflicts. You maintain military forces despite achieving unified planetary governance. This is highly irregular. The evaluation lasted 3 months. The Assembly's representatives pored over human history, technology, and culture with mechanical precision. Their conclusions, when finally delivered, hit humanity like a physical blow. Species 7249 is hereby classified as a Category C civilization, technologically emergent but culturally unstable. As per Assembly regulations, the following restrictions are imposed. No trade with Assembly worlds. No access to Assembly technology databases. No expansion beyond your current colonial holdings. These restrictions will remain in effect until your species demonstrates proper developmental alignment. The economic impact was immediate and devastating. Earth's fledgling interstellar trading networks, barely established with nearby independent worlds, collapsed overnight as Assembly pressure forced them to sever ties. The colonies, dependent on Earth's industrial base, faced critical supply shortages. But in the darkness of that moment, Maya saw an opportunity. As the Assembly ships departed, leaving behind automated monitoring platforms, she requested an emergency meeting with the United Earth Council. They think they know us, she told the assembled leaders, her voice fierce with conviction. They've cataloged our visible technology, measured our official capabilities, and drawn their conclusions. But they've missed something fundamental about humanity. She activated a holographic display, showing schematics that made several council members gasp. While they were evaluating our approved facilities, my team completed the quantum entanglement trials. We've achieved instant communication across any distance, but more importantly, she switched to another image, this one showing a revolutionary drive system. We've found a way to manipulate quantum fields that makes our current FTL technology look like a steam engine. The council chamber erupted in urgent whispers. Maya continued, her eyes bright with purpose. The Assembly thinks they're containing a primitive species that needs to be controlled. I propose we show them exactly how wrong they are, but not yet. First, we build. We develop. We prepare. And when we're ready, we'll show the galaxy that humanity won't be confined by anyone's regulations." "How long?" the council president asked, leaning forward. Maya smiled grimly. "Give me 5 years. They want to see proper development. We'll develop something that will change their understanding of what's possible." As the council debated into the night, the automated assembly platforms continued their silent watch, recording everything they could see of human activity. But they couldn't see inside the quantum-shielded facilities being built beneath the surface of Mars, or detect the fleet of advanced ships taking shape in the shadowed craters of Europa. Humanity had received its first lesson in galactic politics. The assembly had taught them that the stars weren't filled with wonders and exploration. They were filled with rules and restrictions. But if there was one thing humans excelled at, it was finding ways around rules that held them back. The next 5 years would reshape humanity's future. The assembly thought they were watching a chastened species learning its place. Instead, they were about to learn why underestimating humans was the greatest mistake any civilization could make. Project Prometheus unveiled. 5 years passed like a held breath. In the depths of Europa's subsurface ocean, Chief Engineer Kai Patel stood before a window of advanced transparent aluminum, watching robotic constructors put the final touches on humanity's response to the assembly's restrictions. The vessel before him stretched nearly 2 kilometers in length, its dark hull seeming to drink in the pale light of the underwater construction facility. "Final quantum field calibrations are complete," his AI assistant reported. "The Hyperion is ready for launch sequence." Kai allowed himself a small smile. The ship represented humanity's greatest achievement, and their best-kept secret. While assembly monitoring platforms watched Earth's approved shipyards continuing to produce outdated Alcubierre drive vessels, the real work had happened here, hidden beneath kilometers of ice. "Signal Dr. Chen," he ordered. "Tell her it's time." On Mars, Maya Chen hadn't aged so much as intensified during the past 5 years. Her eyes carried the weight of countless sleepless nights and breakthrough moments. The quantum physics lab where she'd first received the assembly's message was now a carefully maintained facade. The real facility lay deep underground, protected by fields that made it invisible to even the most advanced assembly sensors. "They're still watching us," her assistant reported, indicating the assembly platform maintaining its distant orbit. "No sign they've detected anything unusual." Maya nodded, remembering Nexus's dismissive tone from 5 years ago. The assembly's arrogance had been their weakness. They'd never considered that humans might be capable of developing technology that could evade their surveillance. "Begin Phase 1, she ordered. "Let's show them what primitive humans can do." Across the solar system, hidden facilities hummed to life. The quantum communication network, technology the assembly had deemed centuries beyond human capability, carried Maya's orders instantly to every secret installation. In the asteroid belt, massive hangar doors opened in asteroids that were actually hollow construction bays. From Jupiter's atmosphere, clouds parted to reveal floating factories that had been masked by quantum field generators. And from Europa's ocean, the Hyperion rose. Assembly monitoring platforms registered the anomalies immediately. Their automated systems, designed to track primitive human FTL signatures, were overwhelmed by energy readings that should have been impossible. Ships emerged from hiding places throughout the solar system, each incorporating technology that violated dozens of assembly engineering principles. On Earth, the United Earth Council convened an emergency session. It was time to deliver humanity's response to 5 years of restrictions and condescension. "Open a channel to the assembly," Council President Rodriguez ordered. "Maximum broadcast strength. Let's make sure everyone in the galaxy hears this." The quantum communications array, technology that the assembly insisted humanity couldn't possess for at least another century, activated. Maya stood beside the council president as the broadcast began, her heart racing with anticipation. The assembly's response was immediate. A dozen diplomatic vessels appeared at the edge of the solar system, their arrival marked by the inefficient ripples of conventional FTL travel. Maya couldn't help but notice how outdated their technology seemed compared to the Hyperion's quantum drive. Nexus's crystalline form materialized via hologram in the council chamber, his patterns expressing what the xenolinguists now recognized as extreme agitation. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded. "You were instructed to limit your technological development." "No, Nexus." Maya stepped forward, her voice carrying 5 years of carefully contained anger. "We were instructed to demonstrate proper development. We've spent the last 5 years doing exactly that." The Hyperion moved into position behind Earth, its massive form finally visible to the assembly sensors. Nexus's crystalline form flickered as he processed the impossible readings. That vessel, its power signature, the quantum field manipulations, this is impossible. Your species cannot have achieved this level of advancement. Cannot. Maya smiled. Or should not. You made a fundamental error in your evaluation, Nexus. You measured our technology, but you failed to measure our potential. You saw our visible achievements and assumed they represented our limits. Instead, they were merely the beginning. As if to emphasize her point, the Hyperion's quantum drive activated. The ship didn't break the laws of physics. It rewrote them. Space itself seemed to bend as new forms of propulsion and energy manipulation demonstrated just how far humanity had progressed in secret. "We've spent 5 years preparing this demonstration," Council President Rodriguez stated, "not because we needed that long to develop the technology, but because we wanted to be certain we could protect ourselves from any unfortunate reactions to our advancement." The implications weren't lost on Nexus. His crystalline form vibrated with patterns that indicated severe distress. "The assembly will not stand for this level of unauthorized development. You were supposed to follow the prescribed path." "That's where you're wrong," Maya replied. "We're not here to follow paths prescribed by others. We're here to forge our own way forward. The assembly can either accept that reality and work with us as equals, or—" She paused meaningfully as additional ships emerged from hiding, each incorporating technology that shattered assembly assumptions about human capabilities. "They can learn why attempting to contain human advancement is never wise." The message was clear. Humanity wouldn't be restricted, wouldn't be contained, and wouldn't ask permission to reach for the stars. The assembly had spent 5 years believing they were watching a primitive species learn its place. Instead, they had unknowingly witnessed the emergence of a power that would reshape the galaxy. And this was only the beginning. The Assembly's ultimatum. The Assembly's emergency session lasted 3 days. Representatives from 800 species debated in the massive crystalline chamber, their voices rising in a cacophony of alarm and outrage. At the center of the storm stood Nexus, his form still vibrating with patterns of distress as he presented the sensor data from Earth. "The humans have not merely violated our guidelines," he announced to the gathered delegates. "They have shattered our entire understanding of technological progression. Their quantum field manipulation alone represents a leap that should have taken centuries." High above Earth, the Hyperion maintained its vigilant watch. On its bridge, Captain Sarah Martinez studied the quantum sensor readings that tracked the Assembly's growing fleet. The Assembly might be in chaos, but they were still gathering their forces. More ships arrived every hour, taking positions just beyond the solar system's edge. "They're up to 300 vessels now," her tactical officer reported. "Mostly older designs, but they're bringing in some serious firepower." Sarah nodded, remembering the briefings from 5 years ago. The Assembly's response had been predicted with almost perfect accuracy. They were too invested in their system of control to simply accept humanity's emergence as an advanced civilization. The quantum comm crackled to life. "Captain Martinez," Maya Chen's voice carried a note of urgency. "The Assemblies reached their decision. They're broadcasting on all frequencies." The main viewport shifted, displaying the assembly chamber. The speaker, a towering being of pure energy, contained within an ornate mechanical frame, moved to address the galaxy. "The emergence of uncontrolled advanced technology represents an existential threat to galactic stability. The speaker's words boomed across space. Species 7249, humanity, has demonstrated not only technological violations, but a dangerous disregard for proper developmental procedures. Therefore, by unanimous vote, the Assembly hereby authorizes immediate containment action. Sarah allowed herself a grim smile. Right on schedule. Signal all ships. Operation Starburst is now active. Throughout the solar system, humanity's hidden fleet moved into defensive positions, but these weren't the same ships they'd revealed during their initial demonstration. Those had been impressive enough to shock the Assembly. But they weren't humanity's true masterpieces. The Assembly fleet surged forward, led by their most powerful dreadnoughts. Their weapons charge, traditional FTL drives pushing them toward Earth with what they considered overwhelming force. They're launching the expected ultimatum, communications reported. The Assembly's message was predictably arrogant. Your species will stand down and submit to immediate technological quarantine. All advanced systems will be surrendered for evaluation. Resistance will result in forced compliance. In her lab on Mars, Maya Chen watched the approaching fleet with an expression of almost philosophical interest. They still don't understand, she murmured. Even now, they think this is about the technology. She opened a channel to all Earth forces. Remember, everyone, we're not just defending our solar system. We're defending humanity's right to determine its own path. Execute primary response. The Assembly fleet's first indication that something was wrong came when their sensors suddenly went blind. The quantum field network that humanity had secretly extended throughout their entire solar system activated, creating distortions that made their traditional scanning methods useless. Unknown energy field detected. Assembly commanders reported in panic. We're losing targeting capability. Then humanity's real fleet revealed itself. The ships that emerged from quantum space didn't just break Assembly rules. They operated on principles the Assembly had never imagined. Vessels that could manipulate local space-time, weapons that targeted the quantum structure of matter itself, defensive systems that existed partially in other dimensions. This is Captain Sarah Martins of the Earth Defense Force. Her transmission reached every Assembly ship. You were warned not to attempt containment. What you're seeing now represents less than 30% of our actual capabilities. The next demonstration will be considerably less gentle. In the Assembly chamber, panic erupted as the sensor data reached them. The humans weren't just advanced. They had developed whole branches of physics that the Assembly had never considered possible. The speaker's energy form fluctuated wildly. How? They demanded. How has your species achieved this level of advancement in mere decades when the Assembly has existed for millennia? Because you stopped looking for new possibilities, Maya's voice answered, broadcasting directly into the Assembly chamber through means they couldn't comprehend. You created rules and restrictions, believing they represented the limits of what was possible. Humanity looked at those same limits and asked, why not beyond? The Assembly fleet hung motionless, their weapons powered down. As the full implications became clear, they had come to contain a primitive species, only to find themselves faced with a civilization that had surpassed them in ways they couldn't even measure. The Assembly has 1 hour to withdraw all forces, Sarah announced. After that, we demonstrate our offensive capabilities. And trust me, she allowed herself a small smile. You really don't want to see what happens when humans decide to get creative with quantum physics. The next 60 minutes would determine whether the galaxy entered a new age of cooperation, or learned firsthand why attempting to cage humanity was a fatal mistake. Operation Starburst. The Assembly's hour was marked by chaos. Emergency quantum transmissions flooded between their ships as commanders argued over how to respond. Their entire worldview, millennia of carefully controlled technological progression, had been upended in a single day. Admiral Vextra, Supreme Commander of the Assembly Fleet, watched the countdown with all 4 of his crystalline eyes. His flagship, the Pride of Order, hung motionless among the 300 vessels he'd gathered to contain humanity. Now those same ships felt hopelessly obsolete. 17 minutes remaining. his tactical officer announced, voice trembling. The humans' quantum field distortions are still blocking our primary scanning arrays. Vextra's crystalline form pulsed with anger. 3 centuries of military service, and he'd never faced an enemy he couldn't even properly detect. Launch the probe drones. If we can't scan them directly, we'll flood their system with observers. Thousands of small drones burst from the assembly fleet, their conventional engines pushing them toward Earth's defensive line. They made it exactly halfway before simply vanishing. Quantum state disruption. Maya Chen's voice came through their comms, sounding almost apologetic. Your drones existed in too many quantum states simultaneously. Unfortunately, they collapsed into a state we'll call elsewhere. In the Hyperion's command center, Sarah Martinez watched the assembly's growing desperation with grim satisfaction. They're attempting to establish a Tachyon communication link with their homeworlds, her sensors officer reported. Should we block it? No, Sarah replied. Let them call for reinforcements. It's time they understood exactly what they're dealing with. The assembly's backup fleet arrived with 10 minutes remaining on humanity's countdown. 500 more ships, representing the combined military might of 800 advanced civilizations. They emerged from FTL in a dramatic display of force, their weapons charging, and found themselves completely surrounded. Human vessels suddenly appeared in their midst, emerging from quantum states that the assembly sensors couldn't even detect. The new arrivals hadn't traveled through space. They had simply shifted reality to place themselves in tactically perfect positions. I see you brought friends. Sarah's voice carried across all frequencies. We've been expecting them. In fact, we've had ships waiting in quantum suspension at these exact coordinates for the past 3 years. The revelation hit the assembly commanders like a physical blow. Humanity hadn't just prepared for this confrontation. They had predicted the assembly's exact response and positioned countermeasures years in advance. 7 minutes remaining, Maya announced to all ships. To demonstrate our continued good faith, we'll share some data your sensors can't detect. Please observe. The assembly commanders watched in stunned silence as their tactical displays suddenly showed the full extent of humanity's defensive network. Quantum field generators throughout the solar system. Ships holding position in dimensional states their science couldn't explain. And most shockingly, weapons platforms that could rewrite the local laws of physics themselves. Impossible, Admiral Vextra whispered. No species could advance this quickly. No civilization could make such leaps without following your prescribed path. Maya interrupted. That was your fundamental error, Admiral. You assumed there was only one way to advance. Humanity took every path simultaneously. While you watched our approved research, we explored quantum mechanics. While you monitored our official fleet, we developed dimensional engineering. We didn't break your rules. We simply operated outside the boundaries of what you thought possible. The assembly's response fleet began to slowly back away. Their sensors might be confused, but they could see enough to know that their weapons would be useless against humanity's quantum technology. 3 minutes, Sarah announced. Admiral Vextra, I suggest you consider your options carefully. We don't want conflict, but if you force one, you should understand what you're actually facing. She nodded to her tactical officer, who activated a small demonstration. A single human destroyer shifted into quantum space, reappeared beside one of the assembly's largest dreadnoughts, and then shifted the space around the massive ship. The dreadnought didn't explode or break apart. It simply ceased to align with conventional 3-dimensional space. Don't worry, Sarah added as panic erupted through the assembly fleet. Your dreadnought and its crew are perfectly fine. They're just experiencing space from a slightly different perspective. We can bring them back whenever you're ready to have a reasonable discussion. 1 minute remained. Admiral Vextra looked at the forces arrayed against him. Not just superior technology, but technology that operated on principles his civilization had never imagined. Even if he gave the order to attack, he had no idea if his weapons would even reach their targets through the quantum fields humanity controlled. "Stand down all weapons," he ordered, his crystalline form dimming in submission. "Signal the assembly. Tell them we need to fundamentally reassess our understanding of species 7249. The assembly fleet powered down their weapons as humanity's countdown reached zero. They had come expecting to contain a primitive species. Instead, they had discovered that humanity had not only caught up to them, but had surpassed them in ways they were still struggling to comprehend. As the assembly ships began to withdraw, Sarah opened a private channel to Maya's lab on Mars. "Think they've learned their lesson?" "They're starting to," Maya replied. "But the real education is just beginning." After all, she smiled as she looked at the quantum equations floating in her lab's holographic display, calculations that would revolutionize space travel itself. "We haven't even shown them our latest breakthroughs yet." A new dawn. 3 months after the confrontation, the assembly's grand chamber looked very different. The traditional hierarchical seating had been replaced by a circular arrangement, with Earth's delegation holding a prominent position. Maya Chen sat beside Council President Rodriguez, watching as centuries of galactic political structure were rewritten. "The Assembly recognizes that our previous approach to civilization advancement requires significant revision," the speaker announced, their energy form pulsing with new patterns of humility. "The human example has demonstrated that there are many paths to technological advancement, and perhaps our desire for control has stifled innovation across the galaxy." The chamber, once dominated by rigid protocol, now buzzed with excited discussion. Species that had followed assembly guidelines for millennia were beginning to question, to wonder about paths not taken, possibilities unexplored. Aboard the Hyperion, now serving as Earth's flagship for diplomatic missions, Captain Sarah Martinez reviewed reports from across known space. The ripple effects of humanity's revelation were spreading faster than anyone had predicted. "Another request for technological exchange," her communications officer reported. "The Centaurian Collective is particularly interested in our quantum field theories." Sarah smiled. The Assembly's technology-sharing restrictions had crumbled in weeks. It turned out that when a supposedly primitive species demonstrated mastery of physics that your civilization had never imagined, old rules about technological sequencing became rather pointless. Back on Mars, Kai Patel stood in a new facility, one built above ground, no longer needing to hide. Engineers from 24 species worked alongside humans, their different perspectives leading to breakthroughs that neither civilization could have achieved alone. "The Assembly scientists still can't believe we developed quantum displacement drives without going through their necessary preliminary stages," his alien colleague, a bioluminescent being named Zora, commented. Her light patterns showed amusement. "They keep trying to find the missing steps in our development process." "That's because they're still thinking linearly," Kai replied, watching as a prototype ship incorporating both human and alien technology took shape. "They see technological advancement as a ladder to climb. Humanity treats it more like a web to explore." In the assembly chamber, Maya took the podium to address the gathered representatives of 800 species. The fear and hostility that had marked their first contact was gone, replaced by genuine curiosity. "Earth never wanted to prove our superiority," she began. "We simply refused to accept arbitrary limitations on human potential. Now we offer the same freedom to all species. The age of restricted development is over. Let us explore the universe's mysteries together, each civilization contributing its unique perspective." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Species that had been bound by assembly protocols for generations saw a new path forward. The same assembly that had once sought to contain humanity now looked to Earth for guidance in navigating this new era of unrestricted innovation. President Rodriguez signed the new Galactic Cooperation Treaty with a flourish. The document replaced millennia of restrictions with a simple principle: all species have the right to develop according to their own nature, bound only by the requirement to not harm others. A remarkable transformation, Nexus observed, his crystalline form now displaying patterns of respect, rather than his former condescension. In less than a year, Your species has completely reshaped our understanding of both technological and social development. That's because you finally saw what makes humanity truly advanced, Maya replied. Not our technology, but our refusal to accept limitations. Our drive to question, to explore, to ask what if instead of accepting what is. The Hyperion prepared for its first official mission as a joint human assembly exploration vessel. Its crew now included members of 30 different species, each bringing their own knowledge and perspectives to humanity's quantum innovations. Sarah stood on her bridge, watching as engineers installed new systems that merged human quantum science with alien technologies in ways neither civilization had imagined possible before. Set course for the galactic core, she ordered. Let's see what mysteries we can unravel together. As Earth's first ambassador to the assembly, Maya looked out at the changed galaxy and felt a deep satisfaction. Humanity had done more than defend their right to advance. They had freed countless species from artificial constraints. The assembly had sought to contain humanity's growth, only to find themselves transformed by it instead. The universe is vast, she told the assembly in her closing remarks. Its mysteries are infinite. No single species, no single approach can hope to understand it all. But together, free to explore and innovate in our own ways, there's no limit to what we might achieve. The age of restriction was over. A new era of unlimited potential had begun. And humanity, the species that had refused to be contained, would help lead the way into this uncertain but exciting future. After all, that's what humans did best. They saw boundaries not as barriers, but as challenges to overcome. And now the entire galaxy was learning to do the same.